right, well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to see everybody here tonight. And I am going to talk about our landscapes. Can you guys see me? But I'm camouflaged. All right. I'm going to cover our landscapes, our legacies, and going native, and what that means. And let's see if I can get this to work correctly. I have to hold my arm up really high. Maybe. There we go. Look at that. So we went from something quite beautiful that would grow naturally in the forest, unfortunately, to a lot of our forests that are covered in this species. And this is, anybody know what that is? That's a winter creeper. You can buy it at Lowe's. Unfortunately, when it escapes into our natural areas, and our natural areas turn into areas that look just like that. Nothing else growing there but winter creeper. So what is a native species? When I'm talking about a native species, I mean a plant or an animal that has evolved in a given place over a period of time sufficient to develop essential relationships with everything else around it. So it's there and living with everything else, and it's really, really important that you understand that. Because if you don't understand that, you won't understand why invasive species have such an impact on our landscapes. All right, how long does it take to develop a relationship with your significant other? Is it overnight? It takes a long time, doesn't it? And plants are no exception. Animals and plants evolved over long, long periods of time. In fact, they're so special and they have evolved so many amazing relationships that chickadees, for example, does everybody know what a chickadee is? Little bird comes to your feeder? Yeah. Do you think that all chickadees, even baby birds, can eat seed from your feeder? They can't. In fact, most baby birds have to have insects. They have to have caterpillars if you're a chickadee, because that's the only thing that caterpillars feed their babies. They don't feed them crickets or anything else. They feed them caterpillars only. And how many caterpillars does it take to feed one nest of chickadees? 6,000 to 9,000. How in the world are we going to get 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars for every single nest of just chickadees? There's only one way to do it, and that is with native plants, such as our native oaks. And they actually provide food for 534 different types of caterpillars. That's amazing. Does everybody know what a tree of heaven is? Have you heard of that tree, a tree of heaven? A few of you? How many caterpillars does a tree of heaven support? 0 native caterpillars. So if our yards are full of non-native species, then we're not feeding caterpillars. And the caterpillars feed the birds. And if we don't have caterpillars to feed the birds, what happens to the birds? They go away. That's right. So let's look at one more really cool species. Does everybody know what what Virginia creeper is? Kind of creeps along the ground and grows all over the thing. It's got this beautiful red color in the fall. It's native. And it supports 15 different native caterpillars. And in turn, 30 different bird species also use Virginia creeper. I'm English ivy. How many caterpillars eat English ivy? 0. How many birds are supported by yards that are full of English ivy? 0. That's right. You guys got this. So what's an invasive species? If we've talked about a native, and we know that it takes time to develop those relationships, and they're really, really cool, what's an invasive species? It's only 2 things. 1, it's non-native. It doesn't meet the first definition. And number 2, it causes harm to the environment, human health, and the economy. That's it. Those 2 things must be met if it's an invasive species. It's the second leading threat to endangered species. It's the second leading threat to our forest. If your forest is full of invasive species, I promise you, you won't have a very healthy forest, and in a lot of instances, it will completely go away. This is kudzu. Do we have kudzu in Indiana? We do. We have 101 sites of kudzu in Indiana, and I took that picture this fall. Those are trees that are covered completely by kudzu. So let's look at invasive species. These are some of the invasive species that we plant in our yard. And just to give you an idea, evergreen clematis in its native habitat supports 40 species of caterpillars. But here in the United States, after 100 years, it only supports 1. Didn't have time to develop a relationship yet. Let's look at the bottom one, Phragmites, which is common reed. You can see it throughout the entire United States, and it's been here over 300 years. 300 plus years. In its native habitat, it supports 170 caterpillars. Here in the United States, it supports 5 after 300 years. Now look at the bottom in yellow. In their native habitat, those 5 species will support 683 different insects. But in the United States, after 300 plus years, they only support 15. Are we going to feed a baby bird with that? Nope. All right, just to give you one more look, this is burning bush, and this is what a forest looks like after it's infested with burning bush. There aren't any seedlings growing on the bottom floor. That forest will disappear eventually because burning bush will outcompete everything else there. We know that 82 to 85% of all of the woody species that infest our national parks, our state parks, all of our wonderful green spaces that we love comes from our yards. We know that. So, how are we going to fix it? What is this tree? Callery pear, Bradford pear, that is exactly right. That was taken a month ago actually. Here in Indiana, it's all over the place. And it's taking over lots and lots of different places. So what we plant in our yard is moving out and taking over, and what we bring over sometimes for food, for culinary uses, this is garlic mustard. Who has heard of garlic mustard? Yeah, what does garlic mustard do to this little Virginia white butterfly? Virginia white butterfly says, you know what, I can't help it. I gotta lay my egg on garlic mustard because it smells. I can smell it and I have to lay my egg on a mustard. So it avoids the native mustard and it plops its egg right on there and that egg dies. It never even has a chance. That's what garlic mustard does. It's non-native and it's invasive. So, all right, what's that a picture of? English ivy. And English ivy is toxic to dogs and birds and grazers. Did you know that? But here in this picture, there's a sign that says it's certified wildlife habitat. I about lost my mind when I saw that. It is not certified wildlife habitat. So we've kind of created a little, it went away. A little bit of a problem. And we've planted our yards with invasive species. And these invasive species, I don't know what it's doing. These invasive species have taken over and they've moved outside of our landscape into our natural areas. And when they do that, they create a problem. So how are we going to solve the problem? We have to talk to each other and we have to learn and we have to share. It is our problem, right? We're the ones that are planting it. Sometimes we don't know we're doing the wrong thing, so we have to fix that. And we're going to work on that by creating these things called SICMs in every single county in Indiana. And we hope that you will check out the information on the table outside. Johnson County is creating a SICM to help solve this problem, to educate our people, our citizens, to save our green spaces, to save our birds, to save our insects. So we hope you'll join us. On Saturday, we'll be out at a park at, what's it called? University Park. We will be there pulling all kinds of invasive species, and we're there to teach because how many of you remember when you first started driving that the front of your car was covered in moths? How many remember that? Yeah, you're shaking your... Does that happen anymore? It doesn't. My children will never know that I used to have to get out and scrape the lights off the moths off the headlights of my car. So we've made some changes, and not all of them have been great, but we can do something about it, and the best thing we can do is to learn not to plant the wrong thing in our yard. Because as this saying says, in the end, we conserve what we love, right? We love what we understand, and we understand only what we've been taught. So we hope that you will come join us. It's a lot of fun. We're learning about natives, and in the process, we're going to just take out those invasives that are taking over. So we hope you'll join us, check out the stuff on the table, and come check us out on Saturday. Thank you, guys.
Give a nice round of applause.